and delighted to be here for the end of week 48 of Be Strong Families webinar series, Staying Strong and Positive for Ourselves and Our Children. Wow, 48 weeks. It's a long time. We're almost at our 1-year anniversary of daily webinars in both English and Spanish. So, and we just love it. We love connecting with you all. We love knowing who you are and where you're coming from. We love the friends that we're making in the community that's drawing closer together. So if you would, as Emily's done, join the chat. And as Paul says, choose all panelists and attendees in the drop-down menu. And tell us where you're joining from. I'm Kathy, and I'm in Evanston, Illinois. Emily, welcome from Waynesburg, Pennsylvania. Tunja's here from Mississippi. Zalika at Eugene, Oregon. That's a great name, Zalika. I love that name. I hope I didn't mispronounce it. Hi, Jennifer from Sonoma. I have to say, Jennifer Johnson's joining our staff, and I have been so heartened that she's been on it's like, woohoo, and she's been on the webinars for the last week. It's like wonderful. So welcome, welcome, Jennifer. We're looking forward to having you. Hi, Pamela from WDC, and you already agree. Yes, woohoo. And Tammy, hi, Tammy. Hope you can stay all webinar this time. I miss you when you leave. We're going to get started in about 30 seconds. We open the door 3 minutes early, and we'll see. Hi, Ryan Donovan. Where are you joining us from, Ryan? Tiara from Virginia. Where in Virginia, Tiara? Brian's from Virginia too. Awesome. We have staff member, our chief program officer is Alexandra, and she is in Richmond, Virginia. Tiara's in Lynchburg. Awesome. Wonderful to see you. To see you all. We have about 80 people registered today, I think. So we're getting a little bit of a slow start, but it's noon, so we're going to get started. I'm Kathy Wolf, and I'm hosting today Tunga Otis. And Tunga came to our webinars early on and was an active participant. And then when we sent the volunteers looking for webinar presenters, she volunteered, and now we've got her doing a series. So this series, this one today is called Keeping Creativity Alive in Your Home. And delighted, welcome, Tunga. It's great to have you. Looking forward to today. I told Tunga creativity is my jam. I mean, I love creativity. I love the topic of creativity. I love opportunities to be creative. So I'm very excited for this webinar. Let's go to the next slide and just remind people the ways to engage. The first one y'all are already using. See how I said y'all? Anyway.
At home.
Y'all are already using, which is the chat. And if you direct it to all panelists and attendees, then everybody will be able to see what you say. If you are moved to speak, you can raise your hand, and Paul, who's here from Be Strong Families, making sure everything runs smoothly and holding it down. We're very grateful for that. Paul will unmute you. You'll need to unmute yourself, and then you'll be able to speak. So those are the housekeeping details. Hi, Panya, and hi, Griselda. Nice. I hope you're having a wonderful day as well. The other thing we always do at Be Strong Families, whenever we do anything, is we create this safe and sacred space for us to learn and grow together. So in order to be vulnerable, in order to be able to let down your guard, in order to be able to be open and to learn, you have to feel safe. So we create the safe space with agreement. That we agree that we're going to speak from our own experience. We agree that we're going to treat other people the way we want to be treated. And we agree to be here now and to really just give this hour to each other and to ourselves. So if you agree to these agreements, please do like Tammy and Hilda and Jennifer and Rose have done and type I agree in the chat. That also gets you warmed up for chatting. Need more agreements. Come on, y'all. Agree, agree, agree. Awesome. Okay. Tunga, it's your turn. I'm turning it over.
All right. Hello, everybody. And thank you so much, Kathy, for having me back. I'm so sorry that I missed you guys last week, but we had two ice storms in Mississippi and they hit my home and I was without power for about 4 days and without water. And there are still people in Mississippi that are suffering through the same things that I am, but I am back on the block. And I am so glad, Kathy, that this is your jam. I'm glad you love creativity because we're going to talk about keeping creativity alive in your home. So often people think about creativity as something that you're born with, and either you have it or you don't have it. But I believe that all people are creative, and there are things that families can do to help their children develop creativity no matter what age. So go to the next slide. So we're going to be sharing some ideas and some resources. And hopefully, if you're looking for a little inspiration or some new ideas about things you want to do with your child, hopefully this will be the right place. And as always, there's so much knowledge in this room right now. So I want everybody to kind of chime in. If you've got an idea you want to share, if you've got an experience you want to share, put it in the chat box or raise your hand, and we really welcome that. Okay, next slide. So, of course, our agenda, we're going to talk about basically, of course, what is creativity? What does it look like? Some ways we can nurture it. And we're going to also look at a few barriers to creativity. And then the remainder of the webinar is going to be talking about different tips and activities that you can do at home. So the next slide. So how can you start a webinar about creativity when you don't, you have to define creativity. And when I started looking, Kathy, I found 60 definitions for creativity. And I'm like, okay, wow. And I was reading them. I was like, which one? And I couldn't come up with one that I really liked. And then I came across this video. And I want to share this video because to me, it looks at creativity and people who are creative in a broader sense. So if we can just watch this video real quick, hopefully you all will share my feelings about this as a bigger definition for creativity.
When you hear the word creative, you might think of a painter, or a playwright, or an author, or a photographer, or a filmmaker, or a chef. In other words, you might think of people who make things. I think it's what we mean when we use a label like creative type. But there's no such thing as creative type. We are all creative, every one of us. We just need a bigger definition of creativity. Yes, creativity involves making things, but it can also mean mashing up ideas in innovative ways. It can mean thinking differently about data and finding unique solutions to practical problems. It can mean hacking systems and tweaking things in unusual ways. It can mean exploring ideas and navigating information until you become an expert curator. It can mean designing systems that empower the creative work of others. It can mean creating change in the world by speaking truth and leading movements and interacting with people. See, each of these creative approaches shape our world in profound ways. And the more we see the creativity all around us, the more we are able to appreciate the creativity inside ourselves.
Okay, Kathy, that's a huge definition, very broad. So what do you think about that, Kathy? What do you think about that broader definition?
It resonates with me. I think that the thing is that creative types are, thinking about art. I think like people tend to connect art with creativity, but I think what this opens up for me is that anybody who's thinking about things in different ways, anybody who's at all outside of the box, or is being creative. And I think it's important to notice, that when we are riffing on something or improvising, or even in parenting, when we're responding to questions, that constructing an answer is a creative process. So I like it.
And, I'm thinking, when I think about creativity, I mean, sometimes a person, you use it so often in everyday life, coming up with a creative way to get a child to go to bed earlier. That's creativity. It's in every aspect of our lives. And I think all of us have creativity inside. So next slide, please. And I thought about that with science. I said, I thought that science is a great example of what creativity looks like. A lot of times, people describe science as just facts and vocabulary and formulas and all that. But science in itself is an ongoing journey. It's a quest for knowledge of the natural world. And to me, that's what creativity looks like.
Tammy says, yes, I agree. I have come across so many parents who say they aren't creative, but then I'm able to point out how they were creative in finding a routine that worked for their family, or a new way to handle their situation handle a situation with their child, etc.
Right. That is so true.
Well, to me, I mean, if you want to go deep, and I do think it is everything is connected to social justice in some way for me. But I really I was made aware very early in my education that some people were encouraged to be critical thinkers and to ask questions, and were kind of empowered to be creative. And I was one of those, because I was deemed a smart kid, and I went into the higher rosters and that kind of thing. And then a lot of people are just, it's almost like our conditioning wants to train people to do specific jobs, like factory workers or whatever, and then they don't want them to be creative because they're harder to control if you're creative. So I think that there's also just all kinds of social justice implications for unleashing creativity, and recognizing the creativity that everybody has. And it's not, if you don't think you're creative, it might be because society has told you shouldn't be creative, or that you're not creative, not because you're not creative. So it's an empowerment thing, a liberation thing.
And there are so many characteristics of creativity, when you think about persistence, imagination, curiosity, open-mindedness, risk-taking, flexibility, all of those things are, components of creativity. Right? Yeah. So next slide. So nurturing creativity. So there's some things that we just, families and us as individuals just need to be cognizant of when it comes to nurturing creativity with children. I think you have to, number one, provide them with choices. Children who are given choices show more creativity than those who are have choices made for them. And we've got to give them time to do activities and think about activities. We need to provide them with materials, a wide variety of materials. Can be conventional materials or conventional or non-conventional materials. Provide a safe, supportive space for creativity. And I also think it's important to expose children to a lot of different cultures and experiences and things like that. And always be encouraging. And, sometimes when it comes to things like imagination, it's important for us as adults to sometimes be willing to leave reality behind. And I think one of the most important things from this list is for us to think about, recognize, and value creativity.
I think that's really important, Tunja, because when you recognize and value creativity, you're really affirming your child's connection to themselves. And you're really telling them that their uniqueness and the way that they individually see the world and feel about things is important. So, I mean, when you're nurturing creativity, you're really encouraging that inward connection, which is important. Yeah, we often teach children how to behave, how to get by in the outside, and how to perform. But in this way, you're really encouraging them to connect with themselves, which I think is very important.
And on the flip side, on the next slide, we have the flip side, some of the barriers. Sometimes we're so busy, when you're really, really busy, or you're in a hectic environment, it's very hard to be creative. And sometimes when you're in a sterile environment with nothing going on, no materials, nothing, it's difficult. You know, dealing with harsh words. I mean, people who don't value your creativity, your input, you thinking outside the box, the demands to be productive, sometimes not having a lot of time, being pressured, or, you know, self-criticism, fear. I think all of those things, you know, that people experience on a daily basis are barriers to their own creativity. And sometimes even inadvertently, those are barriers to children's creativity in our homes.
Yeah, and you can see that, Tunja, when you're like, so when I think about when do I get my most creative ideas, and like it's a classic, right? In the shower, you know, when you're in the shower, or when I'm just waking up in the morning, or when, so it has to do with being relaxed and being in a safe place, and not being pressured, because it's very hard to be creative under pressure, you know, because you move into fight or flight, and then all the energy is going in other places rather than to creativity.
Exactly. So next slide. And I tried to find this book. I have this book at home. I love this book, and I would have read this book to you all, but I couldn't find it. So I found it online. But I really love this book, The Dot. And this book, are you familiar with this, Kathy? Have you read it?
No,
Okay, great. So this is a book that encourages artistic self-confidence. Oh yes, found somebody that's familiar with the book. But it's a story about a young girl who didn't think that she could draw, and how her amazing art teacher encouraged her creativity and self-confidence. So it shows how creative thinking on the part of an adult can unlock a child's creativity and confidence and growth. I get a few little amens. I see a few little amens.
Yeah, you got some fabulous book. Great one.
Yeah, so if we could just take a minute, I want to share this book with everybody.
The Dot. By Peter H. Reynolds. Art class was over, but Vashti sat glued to her chair. Her paper was empty. Vashti's teacher leaned over the blank paper. "Ah, a polar bear in a snowstorm," she said. "Very funny," said Vashti. "I just can't draw." Her teacher smiled. "Just make a mark and see where it takes you." Vashti grabbed a marker and gave the paper a good, strong jab. There. Her teacher picked up the paper and studied it carefully. She pushed the paper toward Vashti and quietly said, "Now sign it." Vashti thought for a moment. "Well, maybe I can't draw, but I can sign my name." The next week, when Vashti walked into art class, she was surprised to see what was hanging above her teacher's desk. It was the little dot. she had drawn. Her dot, all framed in swirly gold. Humph! I can make a better dot than that! She opened her never-before-used set of watercolors and set to work. Vashti painted and painted. A red dot, a purple dot, a yellow dot, a blue dot. The blue mixed with the yellow. She discovered that she could make a green dot. Vashti kept experimenting, lots of little dots in many colors. If I can make little dots, I can make big dots too. Vashti splashed her colors with a bigger brush on a bigger paper to make bigger dots. Vashti even made a dot by not painting a dot. At the school art show a few weeks later, Vashti's many dots were quite a splash. Vashti noticed a little boy gazing up at her. "You're a really great artist. I wish I could draw," he said. "I bet you can," said Vashti. "Me? No, not me. I can't draw a straight line with a ruler." Vashti smiled. She handed the boy a blank sheet of paper. "Show me." The boy's pencil shook as he drew his line. Vashti stared at the boy's squiggle, and then she said, "Sign it." The end.
Kathy, don't you just love that uplifting, inspiring message?
Yes, I do.
So one of the things I definitely want to add on before we start talking about some more tips and activities, I want to definitely say that creativity is contagious and we need to pass it on. That's what Albert Einstein said. And in our homes, the best way we can encourage creativity in children is to be a model of it. And in order to model creativity, we need to be trying to, focus on our creative self as well. And taking part in creativity along with children also shows them that in all stages of life that, you don't have to lose your sense of imagination just because you get older. So I want to, in the chat, I want to ask people, what are they doing to keep their creativity going these days? What are you doing, Kathy, to keep your creativity going? I know you have a busy, hectic lifestyle.
Well, there's a couple things. One thing is like I've been writing. I wrote a poem this morning, for example. I wrote, I guess I knew I was going to be asked, not really, but I did. I wrote a poem this morning. I've been doing more poetry than visual arts these days, but I'm moving and I'm planning in my new place to have a studio, like an art room, and I'm planning. So part of my creativity right now is also Pinterest. It's like thinking about decorating ideas and looking for, how do I want to, like arrange the space and how do I want to, so that's a creative outlet for me. And then I'm thinking of having, a space that's dedicated to art. And I am a painter and a collage. I do a lot of collaging. For the new year, I always do a collage at 12/31, on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. So I did a huge one this year. And collage is an easy creative outlet for people because you don't have to feel like you can draw or paint or, it doesn't, you're clustering and putting together images so that somebody else has done, which is good. So Paul says, we'll have links to the videos with the slides when they are posted on our site at the end of the day or early tomorrow. Great. Tammy says she loves making crochet. Was it crochet you intended? Yeah. I make t-shirts, ornaments, and engraved bracelets. These are the things I've been working on recently. And Morgan says Pinterest has also been an outlet for her, and making new recipes all the time now, recipes I've never tried before. Me too, Morgan. I did this really easy garlic ginger chicken, garlic lemon chicken in a clay pot that was to die for. I'm just saying, lots of garlic cloves, a whole lemon, and then it was in a clay pot, so it all like melted together.
Wow.
And it was awesome. Tammy enjoys doing a digital collage for homework for one of the webinars last spring. Yes, we did. Hilda says Bible journaling. What's Bible journaling, Hilda?
Right, I want to know that too.
What is Bible journaling? If it's too much to put in the chat, you can raise your hand.
Yeah.
And we'll unmute you. What else are people doing to keep themselves creative? Rose says she likes to write poetry as well, and she plans to start some new flower beds and gardens this spring. Can't wait for the warm weather.
Oh, yes.
Know how you feel, Rose. Where are you? It's a while till warm here in Chicago, I'll just tell you that. I don't even dare start looking forward to that until at least late April.
Better not. You better not.
I know.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Hilda.
Hi. So Bible journaling is you choose a scripture in the Bible, and then whatever the scripture is, or if it's a psalm, whatever it's talking about, you draw it out, but you at the same time, you rephrase it in your own words. So that's been a little bit helpful for me because it's like my little Zen space.
That's awesome. I think that one of my favorite stories is the Shunammite woman. Do you know that story in the Bible?
No, I haven't read that one.
It's really worth looking up. I can't remember what book it's in, but it's a fabulous story. Anyway, Tammy says she loves doing craft. Thank you, Hilda. Thank you and I think you're going to probably be inspiring to a lot of people on the call, because I know we have a lot of Bible readers on the call usually. So
Thank you.
The idea of jumping off from reading the Bible to actually interacting with the Bible, in a creative way is really, really, really cool. Tammy says she loves doing craft projects and experiments with grandkids. We do all sorts of fun things. And I'm thinking, Tammy, I remember one of my favorite things to do with little ones, is to whip cream or make butter, when people it doesn't take much in the way of materials and their eyes get all wide. How did you do that? It's like it's a magic trick of sorts, right? Dana says she's been experimenting with breads, no yeast, experimenting with sweet and savory flavors, and writing my story on the side. Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
Kathy, I'm about like you. I have been, since the pandemic, I've been looking at my walls and my home and my furniture and everything. And I've, room by room, I've been painting and buying new furniture and moving this to that wall and this, that, and the other, online, looking at some objects to buy. So that's what I've been doing. I've been doing a lot of interior decorating during the pandemic. That's been my creative outlet.
Yeah, and sometimes it's interior decorating, really doing it in your home. And sometimes for me, it's going to be I tell myself it's like a 10-year project, because then I see something really cool and I know it's going to be expensive to do that. So I'm like, okay, so I don't have to do it now, but dreaming. So the combination of dreaming and not being constrained, when you say the part about, don't be afraid to be out of reality a little bit. Right. I think that's also really cool, important. And you can do it with anything, but it's this is my dream house, and what part of it actually comes into my house is another story, right?
Exactly. All right, let's go to the next slide. Thank you all so much for those great comments. I just want to share a couple of other books. What Do You Do with an Idea is another book that you could share. Basically, that was on the New York bestseller list, and it's an award-winning book. And it's for anyone who's ever had like a big idea. And it's a story of one brilliant idea and the child that brings that idea to life. And then the next one, Not a Box, it's just a story. It's more for children, younger children, but it tells a story about a rabbit who was asked what he was doing in relationship to this box. And he always said, you know, he envisioned the box with his imagination as a mountain, a race car, and all that. So just looking at something in a different way. And then the last book is called Look at the Building. And this book kind of introduces readers to basic construction concepts through the eyes of 5 friends who want to build a doghouse for their pet Max. So there's a lot of books that you can read and start conversations about different aspects of creativity with children.
It reminded me also, Tunja, about like the Not a Box. There's an activity, I mean, it's tickling my mind, about where you give kids or, you know, people things and they have to think about like 9 different uses, like not the traditional one, but like different uses for common objects. Like it's, so
You've
that's
been peeking. You've been peeking at my
that's coming? Okay, I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
No. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Next slide. So the rest of our time, I want everybody to chime in. I'm just going to be sharing some different tips and activities that I've come across. And if you've got a great tip, an idea, anything you want to share, please chime in. Next slide. So I think it's important to create a good creative space, especially when you're dealing with art and tinkering. Like, you know, that can be very, very messy. And instead of cringing and hovering in the space, making sure there's not a mess, why don't you create a space that can get messy, a space that a child can get loud in. Maybe you might want to set up a music center in your house. But always have some good storage. Make sure that all the different tools and materials are really accessible for children. And maybe you might want to invest in a craft store organizer. And Morgan says that she put a tent up. What did she say, Kathy?
Did you put a tent in her kid's room with pillows and blankets for reading space?
Oh, that's great. That's great. So let's go to the next slide.
You know, like at the beginning of the pandemic, when we didn't know it was going to last quite as long as it did, like you could also kind of like, you know, go camping in your living room. Like, right. It can be like that kind of a.
Exactly.
Here in the makerspace.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of makerspace?
Yeah, I think it's just that, you know, to me, it's a really, it's like a kind of a basic idea, but the idea that you need space to be able to create. So if you're living in the middle of clutter, and you know, it's kind of to designate a space to be, this is where we are, this is where we make things, right, helps the process. Just like, you know, some people I have a meditation space, like a place that I go, you know, so you designate it and then you cordon it off so that, you know.
You're exactly right. I mean, it's got a lot of different names. Some people call it hack space, some call it a DIY lab, but it's just a space where children tinker, invent, build to their heart's desires. It's a great place for fostering creativity and hands-on learning. So I just want to ask a question to everybody. What are some things that you think would be great in a makerspace? When you're thinking about your child, what do you think some great things that you possibly already have around the house, or things that you might need to go out and purchase that would be great in a makerspace? So if you could put that in the chat, that would be great.
You know, one of the things that I've seen and I'm going to do in my makerspace, like I'm telling you, like putting my studio is, and I did this in actually the Be Strong family's office, is those paints on the wall that allow you to make them either a chalkboard or a whiteboard, you know, so that actually you can have a space to write on the wall with chalk or with, you know, markers, like dry erase markers. That's something you could do in a maker space.
Right. I mean, I have a maker space because I have I do a little crafting and then I do a little sewing. So I have a maker space with all those different, anything that I think that I could possibly use to craft or sew, I just put them all in my maker space.
Yeah, and Tammy says, yep, household items, crayons, markers, paints, pipe cleaners, pom-pom, straws, glitter, glue, scissors, magazines, papers, felt. I could go on for days, lol. Like Mod Podge, right? And different kinds of brushes, different kinds of paints, different kinds of brushes, papers, different surfaces to write on or to draw on.
And then some people, I know if you've got the technology, some broken technology, you can probably put that in there as well, old magazines, things like that. So yeah.
Yes, magazine sculpture is another thing though. It's another art that is, with stuff. Dana says paper tubes of different textured papers and cloths plus plastic containers of stuff. Debbie says we have a very stocked schoolroom, so it's easy to go in and pull out whatever strikes our fancy.
And it'd be great. I mean, instead of throwing things away, you can just kind of repurpose some of the things that you might have around the house and use them for something creative. So the next slide, please. Thank you all for all those great responses. And I just found this idea. I have used this before, but I don't know, it's so hard. I found it so hard when I was in the classroom to get pizza boxes now. Now a lot of these pizza places want you to buy a pizza in order to get a pizza box, and you have to do a lot of begging. But this is just 2 pizza boxes put together to make an art easel. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. Next slide. And I know we've all seen this. You've gone into a classroom and you've seen children's art on the wall, and most of them, they look alike. Well, I just want to kind of talk for a second about process art and product art. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with a product art. Especially if you're using if children have an opportunity to use creativity in it. But basically the definition of product art, you kind of follow a simple pattern, and in advance what the product's gonna look like when you finish. And if you don't quite do it right, sometimes you're asked to fix it. Whereas process art, there's no pattern, there's no sample, there's no model. You have no idea generally what the children are going to create. There's no right, no wrong. It's an original piece of art. And children tend to be a little bit more relaxed when it comes to doing process art over product art, because there's a desire to make sure that it looks a certain way to satisfy someone. So when we're working with children, if we really want to focus on creativity, we need to focus on projects that are more process oriented as opposed to cookie cutter product art. So that process art is going to support their development in all domains. It's going to help them to predict and plan and problem solve and focus. So try to focus on process-oriented art.
Lacey says, my favorite thing to do is giving my kids a tray of random leftovers from the craft stash to see what they make.
That's great. That's a good one.
And I know that there was even, I did this as I think part of an exercise for adults, where encouraged to just free draw without looking, with a pencil, or, I would do it also with Craypod, because I love the way that they feel, and not think about what I wanted to draw, but just let my hands do it, and then see what it was afterwards, like witness what happened. It's an interesting process, and it's just like kind of putting your rational mind on hold and not having an intention other than to play, with the colors.
It's like mindful art. Would you consider that mindful art?
I don't know. I mean, it's like, to me, it was part of Open Studio process, which is, Pat Allen created, but it was, it's an art therapy technique, is like, because you're trying to access, and I would always do that with collages too, which is encourage people not to think about, like, not like vision board, like find the thing that you want, like I was talking about with Pinterest, but rather go through the magazines and don't think about it. Just pull whatever your kind of subconscious wants you to pull, like go fast and then put it together. And then you can kind of witness it and see what you did. And it kind of puts you in touch with parts of yourself and pieces of yourself and things that are going on with you in ways that your conscious mind might not be aware of. So it just reminds me, for adults too.
Right. Next slide. And display, when children do some art, display their art, value their art. And these are just some examples of some ways that you can display the art in your home. It doesn't just have to go on the refrigerator. You can display it in a lot of different ways at home, and, you know, try to have some of it eye level so that they can walk by and see it. Next slide. And use unconventional materials. Like, this is an example of a mud painting. You know, the challenge was to create a painting using mud and find out which varieties of mud produce different colors. So just go outside, get some dirt, some water, come back in and see what you can make. Next slide. Comic strips. Comic strips are awesome ways to enjoy creative writing. You know, I think it's so great because it's a combination of so many things. It's a combination of writing, it's a combination of drawing, it's a combination of creating a story. It's everything. It's sequencing. There was so many skills involved in writing comics and doing comics. And they've got a lot of templates online that you can just print out, you know, if you want to, and just fill it in with your comics. So I think that is awesome. I mean, that's wonderful for children of a variety of ages. And if they're younger, maybe you have to do be the person that does the dictation and writes the script out, and they draw the pictures. I think it's a great family activity. Next slide. Creative gift giving. Sometimes, you know, we've got all these different Valentine's Day just passed, and people have birthdays and Christmas. One thing you should focus on when you're thinking about purchasing a gift for your child or receiving gifts for your child is try to make sure that they're creative gifts, gifts that inspire imagination, construction, curiosity, things like that. So I wanted anybody to come up with in the chat or raise a hand or just let me know what are some ideas or some things that would be great gift giving, creative gifts. Kathy, do you have one?
Well, you're putting me back to my childhood, and
Good.
and I remember I'm just like remembering the things that I loved when I was a kid. And these were like Spirograph, and I know it came out again, right? Like Spirograph came out again, which are these, it's hard to explain, but also those like the boards that have like that you
Etch-a-Sketch.
Etch-a-Sketch. Yeah, like you can tell I'm old, but Etch-a-Sketch and that. And then there was also this one like a paint spinning toy, like
spin art.
You could make that. I also love the ones, and I actually made them myself, but like where you do like oil pastels underneath, and then you paint over it with black paint, and then you etch words or images on there. They have them for buying too. And I was also thinking that when I was a child, one of the things that was, I still remember that there was, and it only happened once, and I was probably 6 or 7 years old, but my Aunt Mary came and she was like, we're going to create gifts for your mom. We're going to create Christmas gifts. And so she had us like with styrofoam balls and rickrack and glitter, like making Christmas tree ornaments. And then there was another one where we took egg cartons and we melted crayons over them, like and then put them together as an ornament, you know. I'm not saying they were beautiful, but I'm saying it was memorable for me. as a child that these like creative projects, were always like really fun and good bonding experiences. Tammy says firegraphs are fun, and my sisters managed to get paint on the ceiling with that paint spinner.
Wow.
Yeah. We've done ornaments with the kids for gifts, and they decorated photo frames and photo frame ornaments. Yep, we did photo frames as a family project with when we had like my mom and my sisters all together, and we took a picture of us, and then we also each did a frame, and we gave it to the other person. So
That's cute. That's cute.
Gave it to one of us.
So I think those are great ideas, and memorable. And I think about all those spirographs and spin art. I had all that stuff. I loved all that. And I think about when we were in school, we used to make all these different ornaments, and the trees. Our trees back then didn't look like the trees now. They're so beautiful and fancy, but it was so many memorable ornaments that you would, put up year after year after year. That you
even those ones. I mean, they're even now. I'm not. Nobody's gonna. Play-Doh is an obvious one, like Play-Doh kind of clay sculpture. Then there's also like I used to love those things. They're not magnetic, but they're like I don't know. It was like vinyl that would stick to the.
I know. Is it Play Farm or something?
Yeah, something like that. There was like so you could make stories or make scenes. Color forms. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we're telling our age, Kathy. We're telling our age.
Kathy says it's fun to make sculptures with Crayola Model Magic, which is basically Play-Doh that dries hard on color forms. Yeah, I know. I mean, so like if there's younger people on here, if there's any like young parents on here, you could bring it into the. I mean. I just didn't have, I'm going back to when I was a kid, not necessarily, which is a long, long time ago. But I know that there's lots of stuff online also. There's lots of like, creative games on an iPad that you could do. I want to tell you it's 12:44, Tunja, so I think you're going to need to move because I know you have.
Okay, because we will talk forever. I'm just going to slide through some of the rest of the slides, and these are just some examples of some of the creative toys and games and things that they have out for 2020. And of course, Lego is like number one.
Oh yeah, Lego. Wow, I have Lego.
With Lego. Next slide. So imaginative play. Some things you can invest in. Any type of pretend play is good. I mean, get a sheet and it becomes a cape, and you can save the world. Next slide. Storytelling. Sometimes instead of reading a book with your child or to your child, why don't you create a story or have your child create a story and share that story with each other. Next slide. And creative games like what if, maybe you might be in the car in a traffic jam or at the dinner table, and you might ask a what if question. And then have them just go ahead and elaborate on the question, no matter what it is.
Yeah, my mom used to do Let's Pretend, and she used to give us scenarios. It was kind of a values clarification exercise. Like it was kind of like, there were right and wrong answers.
Water. The water. Yeah. Next slide. And charades, that's always a great one. And then they have charades for all ages. Not just for younger children, not just for adults, it's for everybody. Next slide.
I remember Mad Libs, and also then there's card.
Oh, yes. And Kathy, you said it earlier, those brainstorming games, like for instance, unusual use. Okay, we don't have time now, but if we had time and I gave you all a minute, what would be a new use for a fork? Something like that, a rubber boot, a newspaper, something like that. Or you could, there's a game called Pushy Salesman. Have you ever heard of Pushy Salesman? Pushy Salesman is when you try to sell something that nobody wants to buy, What kind of spiel could you create to make someone want to buy it? Just say, for instance, a dull knife. What kind of sales pitch could you use for someone to want to buy that dull knife? I mean, that's going to be creativity at a high level right there, if you could think of that. Next slide. Funny contest. Make a contest with your child, see if they can draw the silliest cat or come up with the silliest dance or anything like that. Next slide. Have a child plan an event. Just say, for instance, New Year's Eve, or, you know, a lot of these holidays, we're not going anywhere, we're not doing anything. Why don't you get the kids to plan, like, for instance, with St. Patrick's Day coming up, plan something at home. I mean, they can create all the decorations, the theme, and everything. So that would be an idea.
When I was a kid, like when I try to remember how old I was, like 9, 8, I had a next door neighbor, and we used to plan events, like shows for our parents and neighbors to come. Like I don't even remember what we did, but it was like it was a horse show, and we were the horses, and we were jumping over things and stuff. And I remember we set up the chairs for the spectators, and then we would like perform for them, you know.
I wish you had a video of that.
Yeah. Oh, Tammy says dance shows and concerts for the neighborhood, right? And Lacey says leprechaun traps.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a good one.
I was thinking about the fork. You could sell the fork is like to make lines, like to you know, to score paper, to make.
Yeah, that's good. There you go, Kathy. Hey. And another idea I had: open mic night. Maybe have one, you know, once a week or once every few weeks, have an open mic night. And you can bring whatever talents. You know, you might have a child that's really funny. He or she might do a stand-up. Somebody might create their own song, do their own dance, skit. I don't know, whatever it is, have an open mic night and everybody can showcase something.
And Tammy says, bringing me back to the 70s, we spent the whole day outside. We had to find ways to fill out time. And that was true, you know, that was true for us too. We did a lot of go outside and play when I was young. And it's interesting, my son, I think I've told the story before, but he came here from Ethiopia and he was 8 years old when he came. And he was shocked at the way that play was so curated by adults. I mean, of course he didn't say it that way, but it was like, he was like, go out and play. And they would often, you know, get a plastic bag, and it would, you know, bunch them together to make a soccer ball. Like if they didn't have a soccer ball, and play pretend soccer and all this. And he was used to like kids making games, you know, kids making games on their own. And here it was all like play dates and AYSO, where they would tell you how many goals you could score, you know, and all that. It was very weird for him. And I think play has changed a lot for kids, you know, in these generation now than it was when we were young, when I was young. And it was like, go outside and play.
Right. You know? You have to figure it out. Yes. Next slide. Decorate for the holidays. You know, they can make their own wreaths for the holidays or birthdays, make cards. I think someone in the chat box said to make cards and gifts and things like that. That would be great for the holidays. And there's always a holiday somewhere around. Next slide.
That's a good idea. Like in terms of making things for the holidays, it would be a really good like cross-cultural activity to find a holiday that you didn't know about, like, and learn about it, and then make something for that holiday that's not your holiday, you know, like it's not one you know about. That would be an interesting educational thing.
And this slide is about making a family sign or banner, like for birthdays or welcome homes, I missed you, signs to put in the yard, whatever. Make your own. Next slide. And I had this video. I think this will probably be the last thing we do before this session ends, but maybe have a crafternoon. And in your crafternoon, this is an idea for air dry clay. And I think somebody might have put that in the chat box. But, you know, a lot of this you have to bake and all this, but not this one. So I wanted to share this one. Try it. That's my disclaimer. Try it on your own. I'm not responsible, but let's watch this short video and then we're gonna wrap it up.
Hi guys! We're officially on summer break and I'm trying to figure out what the heck to do to keep Lincoln entertained while having a baby on my hip. This week we tried making our own air dry clay. It took us a couple tries to get the recipe just right. Fail! But in the end it turned out great, and today I'm gonna show you how easy it is to make your own porcelain clay with things you already have in your kitchen.
I'm Brooke and I'm passionate about making beautiful things for my family on a budget.
All you'll need to get started is some cornstarch, white glue, vegetable or baby oil, and lemon juice. First, we're gonna add half a cup of cornstarch and then 4 ounces of glue. You can change these amounts as long as it's a 1-to-1 ratio. And then mix them together until you have a smooth icing-like consistency. And then add your last 2 ingredients, 2 tablespoons of canola oil and 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. And then give it all a quick mix until all your ingredients are well incorporated. Now we're gonna pop this in the microwave on high for 30 seconds. Give it a quick stir and put it back in for another 30 seconds. After it's done, take a wooden spoon or spatula and knead it around the bowl until it has a dough-like consistency. And finally, we're gonna remove our clay and place it on a piece of parchment paper that I've sprinkled with cornstarch. And then gently knead it, sprinkling in more cornstarch as you go. Once it stops sticking, you can pick it up and continue in your hands. Once your clay is complete, it should have a smooth, creamy texture and form a teardrop when you pull it apart. And that's it. Your clay is ready to be molded by little hands.
I'm building a house.
If you're not going to use your clay right away, store it in a Ziploc bag with a little bit of oil. After you've finished your creation, you can paint it or decorate it however you would like. This also makes a super fun playdate activity that's sure to keep your kids entertained. And you might want to keep some petroleum jelly around in case the clay starts to dry out.
I need a napkin, Mom.
Lincoln, that's... oh gosh. And the best part is there's no baking. This clay will harden in 24 to 48 hours. All right, guys, we had so much fun making and playing with our air dry clay. Tell me in the comments below what projects you're gonna be doing this summer break, and we'll see you next Friday. Bye, guys!
Sissy, I made a penguin for you.
Thanks, Lincoln.
And Kathy, one thing, do not put your metal bowl into the microwave.
Oh, I was thinking that too. How did she I was thinking there's sparks gonna be flying in there.
That's a disclaimer. I just want to say that just in case.
Oh, right.
But that's it for me today. That's it for me today. And if you can proceed on to the last slide, your slides, you can just keep on going.
Wow, wow, look at all this. There's more. So when you download the presentation, you have even more ideas. So thank you everybody for being here.
Disclaimer. I just want to say that just in case.
Oh, right.
But that's it for me today. That's it for me today. And if you can proceed on to the last slide, your slides, you can just keep on going.
Wow, wow, look at all this. There's more. So when you download the presentation, you have even more ideas. So thank you everybody for being here. Why are we getting this echo in this room? I've never had that happen before. Oh, right.
But that's it for me today. That's it for me today.
Okay, so upcoming webinars, Framing the Narrative of Black History is tomorrow. Please join us. This is going to be a really important one. And then next week, I don't know, Paul, if there's anything you could do about the tech, like why we're getting the feedback. But we have, let's just sign off. Say thank you for being here. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Tunja. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Okay, so upcoming webinars, Framing the Narrative of Black History is tomorrow.
Sorry, everybody, about the feedback loop. I'm not sure how that happened. We're going to be closing it out. Tunja, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Got kind of caught off guard there with the feedback loop. If you want to fill out. That's where you can get our masks. And if anyone is interested in doing a presentation with us, you can always drop us a line here. And I'm afraid that the feedback is going to start again. Again, I don't know where that came from. I'm really sorry. And again, here are the links within. Thanks, Tunja, for presenting.
Signing out. Have a great day, everyone.